So welcome back. In this video, we are going to discuss about an example using nested if elif. In the previous example, we saw examples about if elif, and here we are discussing about an example of solving the problem using nested if elif. So let's take a look at the problem description here. It says, write a program to ask the user to enter the marital status and the age of 5 people. So I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. And the first requirement is count and display the number of people who are married, single, divorced, and separated. That's the first requirement. The second requirement is that within each group, within the married group, within the single group, and within the divorced group, you need to count and find out how many of them are over 50, how many of them are in their 40s, how many of them are in 30s, 20s. And if the age doesn't belong to any of these range, display that message. So basically, there are two requirements. One is you need to count and display the people who are in this group, married, single, divorced. That's the first requirement. The second requirement is that within each group, you need to break them into these subgroups of breaking down by the age. So remember, there are 5 people here. So in this kind of problem, what you need to do, the approach is, okay, let me first think about how many variables do I need. So if I'm going to collect the age, I need a variable called age. If I'm going to collect the marital status, I need a variable called marital status. And if I'm going to keep track of all the people who are married, I need a variable called married count. If I want to keep track of all the single people, I need a variable called single count, divorced count, so on. And also the separated count, sep count. So I need all these variables. So what we're going to do, we're going to implement this one requirement at a time. If you're trying to implement both requirements at the same time, it could be quite confusing. So what I suggest, always work one requirement at a time, or all work from outside in. So now the first requirement, you can do this using if elif. Just write a program to input the age and the marital status and group them into these 4 different groups. And then once we write that, then we're going to come back and add the second requirement. That is where you're going to divide them by the age. Remember, so this is the plan. We're going to implement the first requirement where we're going to divide these people into these groups. That's the first requirement. We're going to test it. Once we test it, then we're going to add this layer as a nested if elif. So we're going to use an outer if elif to handle that. And we're going to use nested if elif to handle the second requirement here. So once we have an outer if elif that takes care of this and the inner if elif that takes care of this, we're simply going to copy paste this thing 5 times because remember, there are 5 people here. So let's take a look at the code that I've already written. So we ask for the marital status and we ask for the age, and then I'm having these variables, married count, single count, divorce count, and the separated count as all set to 0. So now I have an if elif. The first if elif checks to see if the person is married. If the person is married, I'm incrementing this variable married count by 1. And the second if elif, in the second condition, I'm checking to see if the person is single. If the person is single, I'm going to increment this count by 1, single count by 1. Similarly, in the third if elif, I'm checking to see if the person is divorced. If person is divorced, I'm going to increment that count by 1. And the last one is separated. If this condition is true, I'm going to increment that by 1. And else is they typed a marital status that doesn't belong to any one of these. And then you can simply say the marital status is not counted. So once I do that, let me quickly run through this. And I have a breakpoint over here. Let's run it. Enter the marital status of a first person. Let's say I'm going to type single. Age, let's say 25. Remember, in this if elif, I'm not handling the age requirement yet. I'm writing the code only to implement the first layer or the first requirement. Once I get the first layer or the first requirement working, then I'm going to come back and insert the code over here to implement the second requirement. But that will come in a few minutes. But let's go through this code right now. So we entered the age and we entered the marital status, and the marital status, the user typed was single. Now this is going to match. Currently the single count is 0. Now it will go up by 1. So now you see married count is 0, single count is 1, as you see, divorce count is 0, separated count is also 0. So if I run it one more time, this time I'm going to type separated. So now, first condition is going to be false, second condition is going to be false, third condition is going to be false. Now the fourth condition should be true because the marital status has separated. And now there you go. Separated count will increment by 1. Married count is 0, single count is 0, divorce count is 0, separated count is 1. So that is my first requirement. I got the first requirement done. So this is how you have to start, especially if you think the problem requires a solution where you have to implement it using nested if-elif. Always try to construct this in layers. So this is my outermost layer. Now, the outermost layer only takes care of the marital status. And I'm going to come and type the code for age over here to take care of the age. So over here, I'm going to type the code to take care of the age of the married people. Similarly, over here, I'm going to type another if-elif condition to take care of the ages of the single people. Similarly, I'm going to put another if-elif over here to handle the age of the divorced people. And I'm going to do the same thing here. You see, I put some blank lines. So now this is what I need to do. So how many more variables do I need here? Now you can ask yourself that question. So how many variables do I need? All of these variables, age, marital status. Actually, for the first requirement, you don't need the age, but the marital status, married count, single count, divorce count, separate count. Now, within the group of married people, I want to break down the ages into over 50, in 40s, in 30s, in 20s, so on and so forth. And that's what the requirement says here. You see, within each group, you need to break down the ages into over 50, in 40s, in 30s, in 20. So I need to do this for married group. I need to do this for single group. Again, for single group, I need to break those ages into different age group. Within the divorced also, I need to do that. Within the separated also, I need to do that. Before I write the code, let me come back and show you all the variables that I'm going to need. So these are all the variables that I need. One is, we have already got these. We have already gotten these variables. Now this variable is for married over 50. This variable is for married over 40. This variable is married over 30s, married in 20s. Similarly, this variable is for single over 50. This is for single 40s. This is for single 30s and single 20s. So now let me write a nested if-elif condition. There's one more variable that's missing, which is age and marital status. So we are collecting the age over here, and we are collecting the marital status into this. If the marital status is married, if this cell has a married, we're going to increment that cell by 1. That's our plan. Similarly, if this cell has single, we're going to increment this cell by 1. And if this cell is divorced, then we're going to increment this cell by 1. This is the plan. This is how you need to do. Draw the diagram of all of these cells and come up with a plan. And the plan here is, if this cell is separated, then we're going to increment that cell by 1. And coming back for married, so if it is married, if this says married, and if this cell says 45, what are we going to do? We're going to increment this cell by 1. Are we going to increment this cell by 1? No. Are we going to increment this cell by 1? Yes. Make sense? Similarly, if this cell says, let's say 32, now, so what are we going to increment? So since it says marital status is married, we're going to increment this guy by 1. Now the age is 32. Are we incrementing this by 1? No. Are we incrementing this by 1? No. Are we incrementing this by 1? Yes. So similarly, if the marital status is, let's say, separated and the age is 27, what are we going to do? Are we going to increment this cell by 1? No, because person is separated. Are we going to increment this cell by 1? No. Are we going to increment this cell by 1? No. About this cell? Yes, we're going to increment this cell by 1. And then we're going to look at the age. So the age here is 27. Are we going to increment this cell by 1? No. Are we incrementing this cell by 1? No. Are we incrementing this cell by 1? No. What about the last cell? Yes, we're going to increment that cell by 1. That's the plan, right? So when you have slightly complex program for a beginner, where you think you need a lot of cells, always draw out these cells, right? And come up with a plan. So now we have already written a program that takes the marital status and increments one of these cells, depending on the marital status. So we've already done that code over here. So now what I want to do, I want to, for marital status over here, I want to write a code that increments one of these cells, depending on the age, okay, by using nested if elif. So here I'm going to write if. So you can play this at the speed 1.5 if you don't want to see me typing this code. If the age greater than 50, then you can type elif age greater than 40. The requirement is age is between 40 and 49. Okay, so that means age is greater than 40 and age you can say less than 50 or less than or equals to 49, which is the same. So elif, so I'm going to copy this over here. So this is 30, 39, elif. I'm going to change this to 20, 29, make sure you put that. So are we including age greater than or equals to? Yeah, make sure, careful. So if you just had a greater than, it will not include 40. Now, when you say greater than or equals to, it will include 40 to 49, inclusive. Here, 30 to 39, inclusive. Here, 20 to 29, inclusive. And else, so now, so if the age is over 50, so this is again skeleton. Always type the skeleton first. It's a good habit to type the skeleton first and come back and fill in details here. If age is over 50, what cell do I want to increment? Remember, which group are we dealing with? We are dealing with the group of married people. And here the person is over 50. Which cell do I need to increment? Our plan says if the person is married and if over 50, I need to increment that cell by 1. So here I say, I'm going to have all of these cells. Married over 50 equals to 0. Married 20s equals to 0. Married 30s equals to 0. Married 40s equals to 0. So if somebody is over 50, I want to include married over 50 equals to married over 50 plus 1. That means, so we took care of that. Next one is this. So that should come over here. It says married 40s equals to married 40s plus 1. So that increments this cell. Next one should be this cell to increment this cell, this one over here. So 30s, so I type married 30s equals to married 30s plus 1. Similarly here, it's a married 20s equals to married 20s plus 1. And if it doesn't belong to any of that, obviously you need to display a message where it says print your under married is not counted. You see, this is the approach you need to take. So I just finished typing the code for an if-elif inside the first if condition. So this is you're breaking down within the married group, you are breaking down based on the age. If age over 50, you're incrementing that cell by 1. Now we need to do the same thing for under singles. So I'm going to create a few more cells here. Remember, you need to plan out all these cells earlier on. You have to have an idea about all the cells that you need. So I'm going to use this cell to keep track of the single people. But within the single people, I'm going to use this for over 50. I'm going to use this for anybody over 40s, and this cell I'm going to use for anybody over 30s, and this cell here I'm going to use anybody in 20s. So what I'm going to do, create those few more cells. So I have all these variables that you see initialized to the value 0. So now I have this. I can simply copy this, paste it under here, and then you need to change the appropriate cell. So here, instead of married over 50, it should be single over 50 equals to single over 50 plus 1. If age is 40s, single 40s equals to single 40s plus 1. So single 30s equals to single 30s plus 1, and similarly single 20s equals to single 20s plus 1. Now I'm going to copy and paste the same thing over here. Copy all of, and also you need to change under single over here. Just copy the nested if elif and paste it over here. So this should be divorced over 50, divorced over 51, and this should be divorced 40s. It should be divorced 30s, and this should be divorced 20s. 20s equals to. So taken care of a nested if else for the divorced people. And copy this and paste it under separated. So separated over 50 equals to separated over 50 plus 1. Separated 40s equals to separated 40s plus 1. Separated 30s equals to separated 30s plus 1, and separated 20s equals to separated 20s plus 1. So it's complaining about separated 20s, separated, oh, here, I put T over here. That should take care of it. Okay. Okay, now we're done, right? This is how you build a nested if-elif condition. Always work from outside in. Remember what we did? We only wrote the code for the outermost if-elif. And then we went and we tested that, and then we went and wrote the code for each one of the inner if-elifs. And then as you also plan out all the variables that you need, you may want to draw it out. So all these, think about how many cells you need, how many variables that you need. So we need all of these variables to keep track of the separate count, married count, single count, divorce count. And then we need all these variables to track all the people of different ages within the married group. We need all of these variables to track, to keep account of all the people in different age group within the single group. And here, we need these variables to track the number of people of different age group under divorced, and similarly, these are all the cells we need for separated. So this is for one person. Actually, I want to move this, cut this from here, one person. And so this is one person. And remember, the problem says that we have 5 people. What we have done so far is just one person. And we will, what we can do, we can copy paste it. Is that an efficient way to do it? No. When we learn about loops, you will find out that you write the code for one person and you tell the computer to repeat it for 5 times and it will automatically repeat it. But we'll learn about that in the future videos. But here we are doing it without any loops. So if you want to do it without loops, you have to copy paste. So that's for one person. So now I'm going to copy the whole thing here. That's for the second person. Enter second person. So we took care of 2 people, copy paste, and then do this for third person, taking care of 3 people, fourth person, and one more time, copy paste, fifth person. And obviously, we at the bottom, we're displaying only the single count, divorce count, all of these. So within the married, then we need to display print married over 50 is what cell contains married over 50. So we got to display other ones here as well. Married, sorry, misspelled. Married 40s count is married 40s. Here, married 30s, married 20s, married 30s count, married 20s count. So here we're displaying the married, and within the marriage, all of these different groups. Similarly, we need to do that for single, and we need to display the subgroups under divorced, and we need to display the subgroups under separated as well. So I'm going to copy that and then paste it over here, paste it over here, paste it over here. And then I'm going to change this single count. So this is single over 50, single 40s, single 30s, single 20s. So this will be divorced. So why is it? Because I misspelled it. Okay. So this is divorced. So this will be divorced 20s, and here divorced 20s. Something wrong. Okay, there you go. Here it is separated over 50, separated 40s. I know this video has been quite long. Marital, let's say divorced, age is 34. So the person is divorced, obviously this condition is going to be false. Say it jumped all the way to the next. Single, this condition is going to be false. Divorced, is this condition going to be true? Yes. Now the age is 34. It increments the divorce count by 1. Is age over 50? No. Is over in the range of 40 to 49? No. Is it between 30 and 39? Yes. You see divorce count is incremented by 1. Boom. So you took care of the first person. Now it moved on to the second person. It's going to ask the second person age on the marital status. Let's say I'm going to type single, and it's asking for the age, let's say 23. It skipped the first condition. Now is the second condition true? Yes. Single count goes up by 1. 50s, no. 40s, no. 30s, no. Is 20s? Yes. 20s is true, right? So it increments single count by 1, single 20s by 1. Now moving on to the third person, I'll put a breakpoint here. Third person, let's say single again, and 26. Single is true. Increment single count by 1. It's not 50s, it's not 40s, it's not 30s, so it's in 26, so this should be true. Singles 20s by 1. Right now, single 20s is 1, it'll increment it by 1, it'll be 2, right? Now I'm collecting the status of the fourth person. I'll hit the resume. Fourth person is, let's say, married and 52. This is the fourth person. Is it married? Yes. Married count by 1. Is it over 50? Yes. So married over 50 goes up by 1. Now we moved on to the fifth person. I'm going to resume. Fifth person, let's say married and is in 23. As you see, married 23. It went into the nested if elif. This condition is going to be true. Age is 23, 23 greater than 20, and is less than 29. So both conditions are true. Hence, the whole condition is true. Now you reach the end of the program. What happened here? You know, I made a mistake. I should have put str on all of these, and that was my fault. So once you do that, that should take care of it, right? str. So what are we going to do? I'm going to copy this over here. I need to wrap all of these with str, divorce count. I'll put the same thing over here. And that already has it. So now it stopped over here. I don't think now, because I changed the code, I may have to rerun it, but I'm going to give it a try. Resume. No, it's going to stop all over it. Anyway, so you got the idea, right? So at the very end, we need to display all of that, and I forgot to put a str around it. Okay, basically that's what this program is. The idea here is to break it into first requirement, second requirement. Implement the first requirement. First requirement, you are only checking the conditions and marital status. Once you test it, get it working, go ahead and add the inner if-elif condition and then test it. You can do this one at a time. Write this, test it. If that is working, write this, test it. If that is working, write this, test it. So that way, the approach is the key here. If you try to do too many things at once, it can be confusing. So break it into multiple layers, multiple requirements, implement one requirement at a time, test it, and then move on to the next requirement. Thank you. And we will go through one more example of this nested if elif in the next video. Thank you very much.